All right. It is launch day again here at Invite Press, and we were so excited about this new United Methodist edition of Kind of Christian by Roger Ross. Roger, congratulations on the release.
Thanks, Len. This is exciting for me too.
Yeah, this is so. Let's talk about this United Methodist edition. How is this different than the first book we launched here a couple months ago?
Yeah, the first one came out in October of 2025, and this one's different because it includes an introduction and a kind of preview from Bishop Bob Farr, who's the bishop of the Missouri Conference, and then I was able to find 6 bishops who'd be willing to write a 500-word or so reflection on each of the 6 G's. They're the 6 marks of a deeply devoted disciple of Jesus. Those 6 G's are glory, grace, group, growth, giftedness, and generosity. So 6 bishops, they each took one of those G's, and that makes this a little different thing. Now, the content from me is exactly the same as the original book.
Wow, having the perspective of several United Methodist bishops is really exciting because it really fleshes out how this can be used in local settings, doesn't it?
It does. I have to say I was impressed with the things that the bishops wrote. They really took some time and were very reflective and insightful in the ways that they added to what was being talked about in each of the G's. And those little sections come at the end of each of those chapters. So it gives people a different perspective and maybe a little broader perspective from our bishops who see things from a higher level.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of one of the goals that we have had, going back, is that this book is very actionable. It's very practical. It's something local churches can utilize. In fact, you've done a lot of work with local churches. So kind of talk about some of the backstory of the book that way.
Yeah, the whole book comes out of like a whole number of pastors I've talked to and my own experience as a pastor for over 30 years. The last church I served, we kept having people that would show up and say, hey, I love that mission statement that you have to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Love the whole transformation of the world thing. What's a disciple? And to be honest with you, we really didn't have a good answer. And we'd say, well, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We know when we see one. And that wasn't very helpful. So I got the other pastors together and said, look, we've got to come up with a better answer than this. This is just ridiculous. We need to give people an idea of what they're really shooting for when we say we want to help you become a disciple of Jesus Christ. And so we thought, let's take 3 weeks and let's just kind of knock this out, and then we'll have a good answer. 8 months later, we actually had an answer that we could bring to our leadership team and ultimately to our folks that made the larger decisions about the direction of our church. And that became a part of our discipleship/membership process at the church. This was back in 2014. That's still a part of that church's discipleship and membership process. And in my conversations with pastors, I'm a coach and consultant for lots of different churches and some conferences and the like. And it gives me an opportunity to get a bird's eye view into what's going on in a lot of different places around the country. And I kept hearing the same things. They'd say, well, yeah, our mission is generally to make disciples. And I said, well, that's great. Tell me, do you have a common understanding of what a disciple is? No, we don't have that. And I said, well, do you have some kind of process, some kind of discipleship pathway to make one of those disciples that you'd like to see be created in your context? And they're like, well, no, we don't have that either. I'm like, okay, so your mission is to make disciples, but you don't know what one looks like, and you don't have a process to make one. How's your mission going? And that conversation happened so many times with so many different pastors across the country. I realized, these folks are just exactly where I was not very long ago. And maybe this will be helpful. So it was a big tap on the shoulder, I believe, from the Holy Spirit to say, put this down, because they'd always say, look, what do you do? What do you know about this? And I said, well, I can just tell you what we did in my last church, and I'd name off the 6 G's, and they'd say, now, what was that fourth G? And like, do you have this written down someplace? And I'd always have to say, no, I don't really. And that happened enough times where I realized I needed to do it.
Yeah. Wow. So talk a bit about the response since this has come out. I know we have some great feedback from Bishop Bob Farr in Missouri. In fact, he wrote the foreword to it. Great endorsement for the book. He said, "I love how this book has laid out the possible steps along a pathway to a more fully formed discipleship and experience with God." Bishop Farr has been very enthusiastic and supportive of this work. I presume that's kind of indicative of what you're seeing in other places as well, just in terms of the response so far.
It really has been. It's been very gratifying, very humbling, frankly, because people have responded very positively. And I had requests for a study guide. I've had requests to speak about this issue because it just hits at the core of what we're trying to do in each of our churches. I mean, we want to make disciples of Jesus Christ. That's who we are. That's the Great Commission. Yet we often devolve into making members, or even trying to make Christians. But Jesus didn't say, "Go therefore and make Christians." He said, "Go and make disciples." People that live at a different level in their faith journey than someone who's barely crossed the line of faith.
We have another nice endorsement from you said we have 6 bishops that have been involved with this. Bishop Bard from Illinois Great Rivers in Michigan says it offers practicable ideas rooted in the scriptures and grounded in experience for anyone wanting to live more fully into their faith. I commend this insightful guide to becoming a deeply devoted disciple. Roger, it's really interesting that your story, I've heard this a couple times now, never fails to just fascinate me, that this definition that was so hard to find for a word that we have been using in the church for thousands of years, to come along and to be able to offer something that's very specific in terms of a practical, both strategic and just kind of a daily tactical way to respond. I would think that you probably have had great response from not only church leaders and pastors, but also from members who, are seeking a very kind of sequential, step-by-step understanding about how to live out their faith more fully.
Yeah, again, it has been surprisingly positive to me. I mean, you put this out, you don't know how people are going to respond, but so far, what people have said is, oh, like I've been doing this for a long time, and I didn't know that there were these kinds of options and these kinds of spiritual practices that I could engage in. I didn't know that there was a broader process that I could be a part of that would actually shape me over time into the person that God created me to be, that God intended me to be. And when the light bulb goes off like that, or goes on like that, and people actually begin to embrace something that they've yearned for, but didn't know what it was that they didn't have. It's like they felt like there was something missing. It's like a lot of us have done church. We've done church for a long time in some cases, and we know the routine, but it just didn't feel personal for some people, for a lot of people, frankly. And so they end up saying to themselves, is there more? And actually, turns out there's a lot more. And if you're wondering, like, well, is there something that I could be doing that would be helping me to move along in a process that's helping me to grow into the person that I really believe deep down I was created to be? Yes, there is. There are specific practices you can be involved in that will help you to get essentially off the dime, to get into gear and out of spiritual neutral.
That's great. A couple of logistical and sales notes, if you will, about the book. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on our website at inviteministries.org. As we talked about it in October, Amazon's helpful for rankings. So if there's an individual buyer who wants to check it out, we recommend you go to Amazon. Of course, you have free shipping, but it also helps you and it helps the book by activating that algorithm and going higher in the rankings. Where the invite site comes into play is if you have any bulk discounts. So if you have a small group or like I say, some kind of leadership council or committee or group that you want to buy bulk for 10, 20 plus copies, then we have discounts set up on the invite site to enable that to happen, which would beat the Amazon price. So that's the difference between the two, and so they're both helpful depending on the situation and context. Let's also talk about this leadership guide. So you mentioned this earlier. We have a leadership guide in development. You've already written. It's now in our hands. We're doing a little bit of work on it in order to get that out coming soon, but we want to be able to offer that to folks as a way to supplement the work when it's being utilized in local settings. So talk a bit more about what's going to be in that guide.
Yeah, so we put together the guide so that people that wanted to go through an 8-week process would have something to help them to focus on their group session. So there's not something necessarily that people will be doing in between sessions, but for small group leaders, Sunday school class teachers, and the like, this would be something to help you to know how to guide people through the book over the course of 8 weeks and give you a lot of practical tools and questions, discussion questions, and the like that probably will take all the time that you have and maybe a little bit more, depending on how much you want to give to it. But it makes it, I think, fairly easy for someone to pick up and actually go through with a group.
That's great. And when that leadership guide comes out soon, I was hoping to have an exact date for you, but because we've been iced in here, my production lead, Stephen in Nashville, he's been doubly iced in, so we haven't been able to talk about it in a few days. But we'll get a date on that soon and begin to publicize that so we can have that out. And later in the spring, we also hope to have out some additional new editions of the book in terms of workbooks and some kits for churches to be able to utilize this. So much more to come with the Kind of Christian as we continue to see this book out into the world, to support this book, and hopefully get some exciting involvement and response from it as we build on this work that you have done, Roger.
Well, I appreciate that, Len. You know, I just had a conversation with a church that I've been working with in a coaching relationship, and they said, "Look, we've seen that your book has come out. We really want to do your book as a group. We could even do, like a pilot group on your book if you'd be willing to share your study guide." I said, "Sure. Take what I've got. I mean, it's not in the final form." So there's a group of women, I don't know, maybe 15 or so women from one of the churches that I've been working with that decided they want to take the book and go through the 8-week process. And I can't wait to get some feedback from them to hear how that lands for them.
Yeah.
They've been very encouraging, and I'm looking forward to working with them to help shape what the next thing is going to be. And that's a workbook that has not just information for small group leaders and Sunday school teachers to be able to lead a group, but also things for people to do individually during the week in between, some journaling exercises, additional scriptures, additional questions to just soak a little deeper into the practices and the principles that are part of the book.
So as we wrap up here, Roger, we got a question on Facebook for you that just came over as part of our live feed from Dan Green. He asks, what's been your favorite spiritual practice that you have found while writing the book?
Well, that's a great question. For me, I would say the most important spiritual practice for me has been solitude, which sounds kind of crazy because it takes a lot of time to read a book or write a book rather, and then to take additional time to spend in solitude. But I found that to be critically important for me to get centered, so that I could feel like Jesus was working with me as I was writing. In fact, in one of my solitude meditative prayer times, this doesn't always happen to me, but I really sensed the Spirit saying to me the words of Jesus saying, "I will love you as you write." And that was such a powerful thing. I put it on a little sticky note and put it on the wall right in front of me where I did most of my writing, so I could see that from time to time and know that this wasn't just a journey that I was on by myself. This is something that Jesus was intimately interested in and wanting to help me with.
I love that, Roger. No better way to close this time with you. And I've really loved this process with you as we continue to go through this, getting to know you better. And I hope other people have that same experience as well. So now available, Kind of Christian by Roger Ross, the United Methodist edition. And we encourage you to get it on Amazon.com or at inviteministries.org.